for you, right? So she started with you in Bloomington.
It's been a really long time.
I love you so much. Jerry Dean and I were gonna play a song to begin the gathering. Unfortunately, Jerry Dean's had some car trouble, but I think he's gonna get sorted out. But so I'm gonna sing a song for you solo, and it's a song that John loved. It's called "The Delta Queen Waltz" by John Hartford, and it's a special song for me too. So
It is. It played at your wedding, yeah?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Nice.
So. St. Louis on the crest of that brown muddy tide. There was nothing we to the strains of the Delta Queen's band. I found myself holding your hand, the way we had hoped we would do all that summer and fall. Oh, the echo came out, such a deep melt sound in the night. And the echo came back from the shoreline of twinkling lights. There was nothing we really could say. The river had swept us away, like a present here after the warm sound of laughter as we dance to the Delta Queen Waltz. As the big wheel keeps turning, I find myself holding you near. With the nighttime unfolding, I'm lucky just having you here. As the big wheel, we're waltzing away across the floor. As we dance to the Delta Queen's waltz.
Oh, that's a nice song. Bravo.
Great.
Bravo. Thank you for that gift, Michael.
I met John, re-met John, because I guess he knew me since I was born. Being a very young Baha'i youth, was introduced to my family when we lived in St. Charles, St. Louis Baha'i community in the 80s. And then my mom, Linda, we moved back to St. Charles to Missouri when I was about 14 years old, And that's when I got reintroduced to John. And I thought that he was the coolest person ever. And I think most Baha'i youth will agree with that, that we had this attraction to him. You know, he wrote poetry, he smoked cigarettes. That was a little strange, but it made him cool for some reason. Yeah, and he drove this wild boat, white boat of a car that was just filled with papers and books. And so we started spending time together, and we were doing, you know, Baha'i theater, kind of figuring out how we could do these like youth groups around theater. And that's when I got the idea that I think I want John as my stepdad. Yeah, so I started inviting John over for dinner. Jen Vance and I actually concocted this whole thing.
That's hilarious.
And so invite him over to dinner, and then finally he asked my mom out on a date. And I think they decided to get married like 2 weeks later. So, yeah, so John was my stepdad since I was 16 years old. I did not have the best relationship with my birth father, and so John really stepped up to be in that role. He married my husband and I. He was the best grandpa that, you know, someone could ask for. And yeah, so I really feel blessed that John was a part of my life. I was always super proud to claim him as my dad, and he was proud to claim me as his daughter. So that was good. So while I was going through family stuff, I've been here for about a week, kind of just steeping myself in memories. I found a poem that I wrote for John in 1999. So this was when I was performing as a poet, so I'm not going to do it quite as I used to. But yeah. Okay. So my stepdad is a poet, a playwright, a bard, an artist, an ex-Druid, an ex-Catholic, and a sometimes orator of tales as tall as him. He is a canvas of tattoos, his latest to commemorate my mom and his marriage. When we go to coffee houses together, he claps for the performers with his snapping fingers. My stepdad can make anyone love life with just a smile. Even a tired White Castle drive-through cashier at 1 o'clock in the morning. My stepdad harbors books of Rumi, Dylan Thomas, and Kafka, music by Prince, Cat Stevens, and his wild Cajun collection. My stepdad gives every boyfriend I bring home a nickname and doesn't mind sharing it with them. My stepdad has a steel heart valve, and when you sit next to him, you can hear him tick. And I listen to him and the ticking as he tells me stories of how the scene used to be, of how he used to be. And we sit for hours talking about everything. I'd listen to him tell me about falling in love with my mother, and I would tell him about the one I was in love with that week, and the one the week before. My stepdad believes in me. My stepdad made my parents' divorce a blessing in disguise. My stepdad can't wait for my first tattoo. My stepdad makes all of the horrible things that happen to you in life beautiful. Because without suffering, there isn't detachment, he says. And without detachment, there is no air for freedom to breathe. And when my stepdad takes in a deep breath, he exhales, Ya Baha'u'llah.
Oh my God.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
45 years ago when the revolution happened. And I did not know any English. I working hard, I go to the college to learn English. At that time, I was neighbor with John and his mother. And his mother and John helped me to learn English and finish up my college and continue to go to the Washington U and graduate. If that wasn't their help, I couldn't grow up in this country. They was the people taking my hand and push me ahead. And I want to read the prayer in Persian and English. Persian for if Persian here or for my heart, and same translation in English. And I'm sure John and his mother, they are together. And they can know what is the Persian say.
Now they know.
الها کریما رحیما توی آن سلطانی که به یک کلمت وجود موجود گشت و توی آن کریمی که اعمال بندگان بخششت را من ننمود و ظهورات جودت را باز نداشت. از تو سؤال می نمایم این عبد را فائز فرمایی به آنچه سبب نجات است در جمیع عوالم تو. توی مقتدر و توانا و توی عالم و دانا. O my God, the God of bounty and mercy, thou art that kings by whose commending word the whole creation hath been called into being, and thou art the all-bountiful one, doing of whose servants have never hindered him from showing forth his grace, nor have the frustration the revelation of his bounty. Suffer this servant, I beseech thee, to attain unto that which is cause of his salvation in every word of thy words. Thou art verily the Almighty, the most powerful, the all-knowing, the all-wise. Baha'i. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing.
I remember one time sitting, and it was feast or a holy day or something, and it was a quiet time when people were praying or someone was talking, and I kept hearing, it sounded like someone was clicking their fingernails together, click, 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 and I looked at Diane, John, would you quit it? And he goes, dude, I can't. If I do, I'll die. So I stopped.
Good one.
So the ticking has been coming up. I remember, he had that surgery in New Jersey, and his mom went and met him there, and they had to spend the night in a hotel room before getting on the plane back home. And his mom brought an alarm clock so they wouldn't miss their flight. And it was one of those wind-up ones that tick, tick, tick. He said that ticking made him insane because it wasn't synchronized with his internal ticking,
Yeah.
which, by the way, when it was new, was much louder. After after he got home, the movie Gandhi was out in the theater. And I'd seen it a few times, I knew John would love it. So we went to see it, but it's one of those movies that has long pauses of silence. And in the silence, you can hear it echoing in that theater. And the children used to climb over him looking for the pocket watch, you know. It was, when Olive McDonald, a dear friend of ours, Baha'i lived here, had to have a lung removed, and we were in the hospital visiting her, and that was the same ward where they put in heart valve replacements. And we would be sitting out in the waiting area sometimes, and there would be other people who had one or two of those, and when you sit between them, it was, yeah, lots of ticking. I said, well, you guys should have a convention, you know. But anyway, it was, but yeah, I wish it still was. So, how many people here have heard the story about John's first morning on his pilgrimage and him meeting the hand of the cause, Mr. Furatan? You know that story? Okay.
We can't hear you.
Oh, the first morning of pilgrimage, right after registering, when he met Mr. Furatan. Does anyone remember hearing that story of him first meeting Mr. Furatan?
Well, tell us.
Okay. Well, I had gone in first and registered, and it was there at the, for those who know, the old pilgrim house there by the Shrine of the Bab. And it's not a very big building. And right near the entrance was a little room where you went in and registered. And I had gone in first, and then I went out, and John came in. We were given the news that we had just lost the 1985 World Series because the lady registering him was a baseball fan. It was the first thing he heard. Anyway, but as I walk out the front door, I see Mr. Furatan walking down the pathway with someone. And I wasn't sure if it was him, and I start looking at him, you know. And he starts doing the same thing, looking at me, you know. he was adorable. And he comes up to me, he said, "Do I know you?" And I said, "No, I'm pretty sure you don't know me, but I think I might know who you are." And he said, "Who am I?" You know? And I said, "I think you might be hand of the cause, Mr. Furatan." And he said, "Ah, you're smart, you read books." You know? I took all the fun out of it. Well, John had just finished registering and walked out into the entranceway when Mr. Furatan walked through the door. By the way, John's always had a soft place in his heart for the Persians. He used to have a button that said Persian at heart. But Mr. Furatan was this tall. John was this tall. And Mr. Furatan walked right up to John. Down, up, down, up, and said, "I stand in your shadow." Well, that won John's heart. John threw his arm around Mr. Furatan, had no idea who he was. Threw his arm around him and said, "I like you, you're cute." Now, Mr. Furtan's happy, right? Oh, he was loving this. And they chatted a little bit. And Mr. Furtan began thinking, I better let him off the hook before he goes any further and embarrasses himself, you know. So finally he said, "Do you know who I am?" And John said, "No." And tried to give him a hint. The house of worship in Wilmette was dedicated in 1953. And he said, "I was in your country in 1953. To which John said, "I wasn't even born in 1953. And then John asking his name. He said, "My name is Ali Akbar Furatan." And John turned white as a sheet. But that won Mr. Furatan's heart so much throughout the rest of the pilgrimage, if John stood up to go somewhere or walked into the room, Mr. Furtan would stop what he was saying. Wonderful storyteller, Mr. Furtan. He would stop what he was saying and grin at him with the most affectionate smile and say, "He's such a good boy."
Oh, thank you.
But anyway, I just thought everyone would enjoy hearing that.
Yes, very much. Thank you.
I'd like to add one more little thing, because there was something really special about John that I think many people may not know. When he was getting that heart valve in New Jersey at the Deborah Heart and Lung Clinic, it was a teaching clinic, and there was a whole slew of interns and residents in and out looking him over. And after his surgery, and his chest was wired up with copper wire and all of that, and it hurt to laugh or anything like that. There was one doctor that was incredibly short. In fact, he was so short that to look into John's eyes with that light, he had to climb up on the bed on his knees to look into John's eyes. Well, it would stand to reason that this guy was a bit of an expert in dwarfism and knew that if the white of the eye shows a blue cast when they shine that light in it, you are genetically a dwarf.
I'm gonna have to leave because I'm gonna start laughing now. But it's too funny, the story.
Yeah.
It is a funny story. And John said, here he is in all his pain. He wasn't even allowed painkiller, by the way. And that man jumped off of the bed, backed up, and said, "Oh my God, you're the biggest dwarf I've ever seen." And John said it didn't matter how bad it hurt, he could not. And I didn't think of it till last week. We should have tried to get him in the Guinness Book of World Records. The reason that this happened is because his family wasn't very tall, but John was extremely short. And at the age of 10, the doctor gave him growth hormones, and he grew 12 inches in 1 year. I used to joke and say you went to bed in pajamas and woke up in shorts. Yeah. So those are just a few things about John I thought you would enjoy knowing.
Thank you.
Introduced myself very much before. I just kind of started singing, so I'm gonna backpedal. I met John and Lisa because we both had the same music teacher, Colin Blair, and I think we kind of like briefly kind of met, like, because like maybe their lesson was after mine or vice versa. So
Exactly.
I kind of met them, a few times, just kind of like in passing, sort of. But then we like really got to like hang and chat at a concert that was at the music shop. And then fast forward a little bit, we weren't able to do lessons at that music shop anymore, so we pivoted to doing our lessons at John and Lisa's house, which was so fabulous.
Aww.
And it was like a party every time. Like we would have a little dinner party, and there was always beautiful food and stories and laughter, and John and Lisa are so generous with their
Because we love you.
they're so hospitable, and they're so generous with their time and with their love, which is so abundant. And then after dinner we would each do our lessons, and then some other just fond memories of hanging with John were at John and Lisa's fabulous 515
The
food salons,
515s,
which
I miss them.
they were just the best. They introduced me to so many just really nice, really interesting people, some of whom are here today, and that was such a just kind of like halcyon era of my life, going to John and Lisa's every week. And thank you so much for that, Lisa.
Oh my goodness, he
Thank
loved
you.
you. He loves you. He's your brother.
So I'm Liz. Some of you don't know me. Who was it earlier today that said, so you've known John a long time? Was it you? Somebody said, so you've known John a long time. I have. I have, since our kids were really little. And then for the oldies here, who's a Leo Powell? Who remembers Leo?
Yes.
I loved informal Baha'is. I kind of still have a soft spot for them. And Leo probably was the first Baha'i I knew that was kind of like, just maybe on the ragged edge every now and then. And he gave me a nickname the first time, because a lot of Baha'is are very formal. They would call you a given name. And he had a silly name for me. No, you guys don't know this probably. But Leo, when he would see me, he would say, "Oh, it's the mama of the round-headed babies." and he would say it loud enough for other people to hear. He did not care. And that was my nickname with Leo forever. And I did have round-headed babies, and he would say they look just like my Victor. But it was John who gave me my second nickname. But it wasn't just for me. It was for the whole group, because those round-headed babies were little gals when John got to know them. And, he was kind of like Uncle John almost to them, like he was to a lot of other people. And if he saw me and Tony arrive, whether all three of them were in tow or not, he would rear back as he did. You know that little maneuver, right? And he would go, so you wanted his voice to be firm, and he would go, "Da Bonds!" Like it was an announcement that we'd arrived. And I'm like, "We're late, John. Could you just let us sneak to our seat?" But he would announce our presence. And this was, I hate to say this, but this is before the internet. And when we first got Prodigy, anybody here old enough that they remember like the dial-up and the waiting for the, and we named ourselves Da Bonds.
Yeah.
And so with a D, because he didn't say the Bonds, it was Da Bonds. And I don't know where he came up with it, but his nickname for us still lives on with that silly thing. Yeah. So that's one story that I have about him. But the other thing I have to share, I don't know that there's maybe anybody here that would remember this, but for a while we had people in the city in this Baha'i community there that liked theater and acting up and doing things and dressing up, and I wasn't always really that person. But on Halloween you get permission, right, to do that. So one of the Baha'is hosted a Halloween party, and at the Halloween party I was dressed up, Sarah was dressed up, Hillary was dressed up. What did you have on, Hillary? I think you were dressed like Jane Fonda, workout girl, or something like this. And I dressed in a wool suit that had this long collar that you're supposed to fold over your shoulders. But I took the collar and put it up over my head, put it underneath a wool hat that was the same exact color, all of it colored like a pumpkin. And I'd made a little stem on the top of the hat. So I was some kind of, I don't even remember what I called myself. What is the story that the Snoopy has?
It's the Great Pumpkin.
I think I called myself the Great Pumpkin, and I painted my face orange, went to this party, and in the middle of the party, the host decided to do charades. I don't know what happened. One of my daughters is named Sarah. I was trying to get a bunch of adults to say 3 mules for Sister Sarah. I don't know how many times I pointed at a sister and then pointed at Sarah, and nobody could guess this. Oh. And so the longer I worked at this charades, the redder my orange became. And I was beside myself, like just looking at it like, why can't you, and somebody was taking pictures of me, and I did not know this. I think it might have been the host. They gave the pictures to John. Anybody know what John did with the pictures? Anybody remember this weird story? John took the pictures and turned them into little placards and put them next to the fund box, because I happened to be the treasurer at that time.
Oh, no.
And he says, "Please make sure to remember the fund, or the treasurer might lose her mind." And he put that next to the fund box on the same week that Shohreh Majidi's parents happened to come for a visit to the area, and they were trying to just check and see if their daughter and son were doing good in our community, and they were like, okay. I didn't know quite what to do with that. We had to try to put it into context. But that's the kind of shenanigans that were always like right there on the fringe, and I think kind of kept things fun for the kids. Where like what you were saying, he kind of shared himself with everybody, whether it was related or not related, and I think that we all got to benefit from that. So yeah,
Nice.
absolutely. I'm not mad. I'm not a mad pumpkin. I'm okay now. I'm okay now.
I imagine all of you can relate. I just always felt so accepted and seen and loved and celebrated, and yeah, it's so and I always laugh. He always made me laugh, you know. So my memory eludes me a lot with a lot of people I had many moments with. I can't remember specific things that happened, but I remember how they made me feel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I'd like to sing a little song, prayer song.
Wonderful.
And this is a prayer song that I heard when I was 15. A young man that I met at Helen Baha'i School, and I only had a brief time with him at a youth conference. He got in a car accident, like not that long, after that. I was 15, and passed away. And another youth that was there sent me a tape. We used to have cassette tapes. Cassette tapes. With the service on it. And Christina Quinn, this amazing, she sang this song, and it's just has helped me when people transition. So to just. Aye-yo. Ay, 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 yo. Ay, yo. Ay, yo. Ay, 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 yo. When I die, please see me running fast and running far and running hard. And when I die, please don't bury me, but carry me in your heart. And let me go, let my body die. Don't hold my soul, let my spirit fly. 'Cause when I die, I want to die alive, aye-yo, aye-yo, aye-yo.
God's given us years of happiness here, and we must part. And when God comes home, and when the angels come and call for you, the pains of grief tug at my heart. Oh my darling, oh my darling, My heart breaks as you take your long journey. Oh, the days will be empty, the night so long without you, my love. And when God calls for you, I'm left alone, but we will meet in heaven above. Oh, my darling, my darling, my heart breaks as you take your long journey. Oh, for memories I'll keep of the hand